Boss mocked me for living with parents. Here's my background. I'm 31 and I graduated a few years ago and took my first college-educated job. Even though I have been there almost 2 years, I still barely make enough to pay rent in my area. So since my parents are okay with me living at home, I do. My boss, the rich owner of this company, overheard me say that my favorite thing to do is to go home, eat dinner and watch TV, and then he made a smartass comment about my mommy fixing my food. The DCK head has joked about me being skinny and quiet too. I would just love to tell him to FCK off one day. Fuck you, boss. Rant over. Tell him if he paid you better, maybe you could afford a decent place of your own. Congrats on your job and living somewhere you enjoy that lets you focus on saving and being happy. Enjoy it and ignore the asshole. Your family sounds like a treasure. Many people of privilege do not understand that they're living life on peaceful difficulty while the rest of us are playing hardcore. They're making fun of you for not being able to afford more food and housing while they're the ones paying you. It's time to get far away from that situation. Start sending resumes. You're worth a lot more than this BS and they know it, or they wouldn't be putting you down. My rich as fuck ops manager made fun of my car and I told him he was the reason I was driving it. Shut him up real quick. Make snide comments about the poverty wage he offers. Lord, it must suck not being successful enough to pay your employees a living wage. Maybe if you were smarter or worked harder you could afford to have a successful business. Since he's joking about your weight, that might fall under harassment in some way. In case you wanted to take this a step farther. Revenge is a dish best served cold. Next time they say something great, let's talk about a salary that gives me enough to afford rent in this town. Dude, you need to pencils out what a gratifying existence would cost in your area, including a car payment, good insurance, cell phone, clothing budget, everything. Not luxurious, but not squalor living. Also losing your AITA subsidy and accounting for tax liability at this higher pay. And tell him that your parents aren't super stoked about subsidizing his workforce either. Then say pay up or shut up. You know, boss, you can fix that by giving me a raise. Some cultures like their parents, and many love with their family forever. In these cultures, a house is the home forever, and generations turn over again and again. Instead, we live in a hellscape that treats land as a commodity, parents as things to get away from, and gaslight ourselves into thinking social isolation is actually independence. Love your parents. They make great friends. My husband and I are 28 and just moved out of his mom's house this year, and we're fucking lucky we could afford it. Our friend who is turning 30 this year still lives in his parents' basement while he tried to save up money to move out. It's normal in this day and age because it's all people can afford. Your boss is an entitled asshole and you should go to our. You're welcome to pay me more so I can afford to move out. Boss should stuff it. There's going to be a lot more multi-generational households due to both the cost of rents and mortgages, insurance, and the lack of available housing. People with the land will most certainly plop a tiny house in the backyard where they can, or even have family living in a travel trailer on the property in the driveway or backyard. How about a raise that would allow me to pay a mortgage? Too bad. Maybe if they paid enough for people to be able to afford rent? Also, skinny quiet guy here. Fuck that. That's just straight up harassment. Sounds like you should mock your boss for not paying you a decent living wage. At least my family taught me to treat others with kindness instead of being so insecure that I have to toss around insults. I had that with a crabby douchecanoe of a middle school dropout. Why are you complaining about wages? Don't you live with your mommy? I pay her rent. Well, yeah, you should be paying your rent. No, I pay her rent, and my rent, and our groceries. That's why I'm bitching about our low wages, you gargoyle. It's lifers like him keeping the rest of us down, doing all the work of management with the hops of getting a few table scraps. What's funny is he more than likely bought his home with his parents' money or inherited it rolling on the floor laughing. He is jealous that he doesn't have a close relationship with his family like you do. You're right. I should quit, be unemployed, get benefits, and force your company to pay more taxes. Should tell him, not everyone gets business funding from their parents. If it's any consolation, I'm 30M living with my parents too. I work a remote job now, but I was doing office work for a few years before. And let me tell you, a lot of people who are bosses or managers are laughably incompetent. If they need to insult or belittle you in any way, just know they're probably facing that from someone else currently or have in the past, flexing the power is all they have in their sad rat race life. I'm so sorry that shithead said those things about you. My girlfriend's mother is disabled and has chronic illnesses, so I understand that GF and I will probably be living with my future mill for the foreseeable future, as we help her with things she needs. There are so many reasons that people might live at home with their parents-in-laws, from it being more affordable to a necessity to just living there because you love them and want to be there. He was incredibly out of line. He's the owner? Flip the FCK around and ask him why he underpays so much that you can't afford rent. If your cheap-ass boss paid a fair wage, you could afford an apartment. Don't forget to mention that to him the next time he mocks your ass. Post his contact information and Reddit will do the rest. Never tell co-workers or bosses about your finances, family, or living situations. Stop being so open and nonchalant with info. Time to contact our. Organize a union. If the a-hole paid you a living wage, you'd have a chance of moving out. Do the next best thing. Send out resumes and look to increase your income and not work for a DBAG. Fuck that guy. I fully expect my child to move back in after college, and even after that my door is open anytime she wants to come home and hang out. I'm 32, professional, and also live with parents because I cannot afford rent alone. Fuck your boss. We are legion and we are many. I'd ask him genuinely how you'd make it work. You pay me X. Average rent in the area is X. How do I pay that? Sue M for harassment. I've warned a couple bosses over the years that we can have a private conversation outside if they want to play high school. Sounds like you need a new job. 1. Something that pays enough to allow you to move out on your own. 2. Someplace without a shit boss. 3. You also need to stand up for yourself. You should ask for a raise at your next annual review. Tell him that you cannot afford to rent in your area with your current pay, and you'll have to find something else to get a place of your own. This is why I don't talk about my personal life at work. People always find a way to be assholes about it. Some people are jealous. They pride themselves on being on their own and spending insane amounts of money on rent, when they should be doing the most to to minimize cost of living. If I could live with my parents and save an extra $2,500 of rent a month, I'd be vacationing often. And I'd be very content. Especially if they're in a house and you have your own floor and room and bathroom. Like, no-brainer. In a perfect world, you could tell him, pay me more so I can afford my own place. Until then, keep your comments to yourself. But only in a perfect world. It sounds like you have great parents.